you're still thinking that there are 9 planets in our solar system, think again.
But today, scientists from the California Institute of Technology have announced that they finally have solid evidence for a planet X, a true 9th planet on the edge of our solar system.
The Earth is warming up. Radiation is building. Sickness is running rampant all over the Earth. But why? See, if something is just indigenous to Earth, maybe mankind can change it. But what we're having is not indigenous to Earth. It is not just for Earth. The entire solar system is beginning to do a wicked shimmy. And solar activity is a telltale sign of the exotic energy that's coming into the solar system. What it emits, the solar system is responding to, just like your skin responds to infrared light. So does the solar system respond to these exotic particles coming in, because the source is coming close. The source of these waves is coming close. Now, close does not mean right there where you can see it. I can assure you that, but prior to you seeing anything, this world is going to rumble like you never saw before.
They are using data about how other objects as far out as Pluto are reacting and moving out of alignment, getting out of its way, so that they believe to be evidence of a very, very, very large planet. And by that, it's something like 5 to 10 times the size of Earth. For now, we can pretty much leave all of the textbooks alone.
There are signs all around you. The interiors of the Earth. Everything is waking up. The Earth right now is about to turn 1 degree. And what indication do you have of that? Does anybody have an indication of that? And it's not going to take a long time for the Earth to shift 1 degree. 1 degree in a tilt is huge. 1 degree. 1 degree is going to continue to change the weather in an abrupt way. The water will move. Melting will start. And this is what they always knew about.
Did you know that Earth has 2 North Poles? There's the geographic North Pole, which never changes, and there's the magnetic North Pole, which is always on the move. And right now, it's moving faster than usual. Over the last 150 years, the magnetic North Pole has casually wandered 685 miles across northern Canada. But right now, it's racing 25 miles a year to the northwest. This could be a sign that we're about to experience something humans have never witnessed before: a magnetic polar flip. And when this happens, it could affect much more than just your compass.
About 3 years ago, I had several people contact me, and they said, "Bob, I have films of the construction of underground facilities all over the United States."
Our black budget, right now there are 131 active deep underground military bases in the United States.
In 1972, the government had the technology to excavate tunnels across the United States and put maglev trains in that were capable of doing 10 to 14,000 miles an hour. Thermal nuclear boring machines that melt through rock just like you were taking a knife through butter.
Average cost of $17 to $19 billion.
Armed security patrol the entrance to a doomsday bunker that's reserved for the wealthy elite, and sales are booming. We're heading deep below the surface of the Earth into an underground bunker like no other.
We are in a typical full-floor residential unit, and even though we are more than 100 feet underground right now, you can see that it's certainly not a claustrophobic area.
12 luxurious condos exist here with fireplaces, high-end appliances, jacuzzis, even windows. Yes, windows. High-definition TVs broadcast a live feed of the outside world right into your living room. The price tag for this 3-bedroom, 2-bath condo, $2.3 million.
Well, as the sign says, welcome to the beach.
And look at this. It's a swimming pool with a slide and waterfall. Other common areas include a movie theater, rock climbing wall, and shooting range. There's even a farm that grows all the fresh fruits and vegetables you'll need.
This can grow up to 70 different species of plants, lettuces, tomatoes, carrots.
The bunker runs on power sources like wind and diesel generators.
We have enough fuel to run these diesels for 2.5 years.
Plenty of time to ride out worldwide chaos should it ever erupt.
And that came to me from several people. Some of them were truck drivers who told me fantastic stories about having an 18-wheeler, 40-foot truck filled with foodstuffs being delivered into a government facility, and they would follow the map where they were supposed to go, and there was nothing out there. Let's say it was outside of Texas in the desert area, and they would go, and the side of a mountain would open up, and they would drive down inside of a mountain, and it would close behind them. They would tell me about going into an underground facility in Tennessee and driving for 600 miles under the ground.
I mean, basically, you got an underground roadway system here that runs all the way to Maine, to Washington, D.C., to Colorado. It's fully stocked. It runs completely underground. And you can see they've been hauling tons of military equipment. When they go underground, they can stay underground for quite some time. And this is stocked with food, water, everything they need. It's an underground city.
And what had taken place in approximately 83, apparently with the launching of a new infrared telescope being put way out in the far reaches of the solar system.
Hi, I'm Jim Green, Director of Planetary Science at NASA. Last July 14th, NASA's New Horizons spacecraft flew past Pluto, capping a half-century of exploration of our solar system. It piqued our interest about what lies beyond Pluto and what can we learn about ourselves and the origins of our solar system. The idea of a new planet is certainly an exciting one for me as a planetary scientist, and I think for all of us. The January 20th paper in the Astronomical Journal is fueling our interest in planetary exploration and stimulating a healthy debate that's part of the scientific process. I couldn't be more pleased about what's happening. You know, it's all about starting the process that could lead to an exciting result. It is not, however, the detection of a new planet. It's too early to say with certainty that there's a so-called Planet X out there. What we're really seeing is an early prediction based on modeling from limited observations. What's exciting is that, like NASA's journey to Mars or New Horizons flyby of Pluto, you will have a front row seat to see how the scientific process unfolds. Theories like this serve to stimulate ideas and conversation. They tap into our innate curiosity. It's important for us to continue to work, and we will. Anytime we have an interesting idea like this, we always apply Carl Sagan's rules for critical thinking, which include independent confirmation of the facts, looking for alternate explanations, and encouraging scientific debate. If Planet X is out there, we'll find it together. Or we'll determine an alternate explanation for the data that we've received so far. Or we'll determine an alternate explanation for the data that we've received so far.
Planet X, or the planet called Nibiru, which is mentioned in all the biblical writings. It's mentioned in all Bibles and scriptures from many foreign nations. It's mentioned in historic writings of the Chinese emperor 2,000 years ago. It's written on the side of the walls of temples that were 4,000 years old. There was a study done a while back of the clay tablets that were from Sumeria that had been completely broken down and analyzed by a man named Sitchin, S-I-T-C-H-I-N, and he had deciphered clay tablets. There's 25,000 of these tablets. They actually went back 4,000 years, and they described Nibiru, the planet X, and its relationship to coming back.
حتى قسم كبير من الناس اللي في محافظة ذي قار لا يعلمون أن أول المطارات التي أنشئت في كوكب الأرض قبل 5000 سنة قبل الميلاد أنشئت في ذي قار. واللي ما يصدق يقرأ كتاب المؤرخ الكبير المتخصص في الدراسات السومرية زكريا سينشن، أو يعود إلى كتب صاموئيل كريمر، أو يعود إلى الكتاب الذي ألفه أجي ويلز حول هذا الموضوع، والذي يحمل عنوان باللغة الإنجليزية History Begins from Sumer. التاريخ يبدأ من سومر. كان يتكلم عن أولى المطارات التي أنشئت في كوكب الأرض، أنشئت في هذا المكان. إن هذا المكان هو أأمن مكان تهبط فيه الطائرات وتقلع منه الطائرات، لأن هناك بعض المؤثرات الجوية التي تثقل تحركات الطائرة وتحد من مناورتها غير موجودة في مطار ذي قار. يعني في مش مطار ذي قار، في كل أجواء ذي قار أجواء آمنة للطائرات، ليست فيها أي مؤثرات جوية سلبية. كل ما يتوفر في أجواء ذي قار هو أجواء إيجابية، بمعنى أن السومريين لما استقروا في هذه الأرض كانوا يعلمون تماما أن هذه الأرض بأجواءها هي أجواء ملائمة للتحليق في الفضاءات، وكان من هنا تنطلق المركبات الفضائية السومرية نحو الكواكب الأخرى. والسومريين أول من اكتشف الكوكب رقم 12 الذي اعترفت به وكالة نازل الفضاء قبل بضعة أيام، والذي أطلقوا عليه نيبيرو، ويدور حول الشمس.
And this coincided with the biblical talk. It was called wormwood in the Bible, and it's described in, like I said, a whole multiple of biblical scriptures of sorts coming from around the globe. 2,000, 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago, 4,000 years ago in the case of the Sumerian clay tablets. So what they described is Nibiru being a planet in a huge elliptical orbit. Now, and get back to where I was, in 1983, apparently it was discovered sufficiently that scientific people at a very high level came into President Reagan and George Bush, the vice president, and said, we got a problem. It looks like now we found Planet X that's been talked about, like you mentioned earlier at the beginning. It's been talked about at least and written about, of course, going way back, but in modern times, in 1960 and 50, there was writings about it in Life magazine and Reader's Digest and Lookton magazine, all the major media of that time in the 50s and the 60s. But apparently in around 83, Ronald Reagan and his people were told that this is on its way back in and that it had been discovered, and now what are we going to do? All right, so at that point it changed everything in Washington. And what you had now was this handful of large numbers of, I'm going to refer to them all as, excuse me, criminal, corrupted persons out of government, and they decided that what we have to do, obviously, is if this thing's coming back, we've got to expand underground facilities that are going to hold enough people so that our families and our immediate most important wealthy people of the United States are going to have a place to hide. They called it continuity of government. And they built 103 of these underground facilities underground in the United States. I also started looking into it to find out what the status was on other foreign nations, because something of this sort, coming back, a biblical event that will devastate the globe, obviously has to be known also to the highest levels of other governments. What I found out is that Russia in 2010 put out a mandate that by 2015 that they would have 5,000 underground facilities prepared for as many people as they could in Russia. I found out they had one large facility. Actually, they have several large, but one of them's big enough to hold as many as 30,000 or 40,000 people underground. I discovered that the European major nations have been also building underground facilities.
We're under the streets of Helsinki, the capital of Finland, and I'm going to show you the elaborate tunnels and passageways they have. A lot of it is public space that looks like they're sporting fields. People use this all the time, and yet you can see the granite rock and the fact that this space could be turned into bedding for 1,500 people in 3 days. That's the time limit they give themselves to turn this from a sporting field into a shelter if required. We're going to walk through here. I'm going to show you some of the other tunnels because they go right across underneath the streets of Helsinki. It's all part of their civil defence. They won't say that it's to do with a threat possibly from Russia. It could be a nuclear attack. It could be chemical warfare. It could be anything. But they want to be prepared. So now we're coming into one of the other tunnels. Have a look at this. These are the beds that they have prepared. Bunk beds that people can sleep on. They've got medical equipment ready. And then over here, this is how they would go to the toilet. So the toilets would be here. They've got the ventilation up there. The yellow lines on the floor are where each of the toilets would be put. And have a look at that tunnel there behind me. So you can imagine this runs all the way. If we kept following this, you would keep coming into some of those public areas that could be sporting fields or swimming pools, areas that can be easily turned into some kind of shelter for the people of Helsinki. They could fit 700,000 people in here. That's more than the entire population if they have to. They maintain them very well. They make sure they've got their own air supply in case it is a nuclear accident from Eastern Europe and they have to come down here and protect themselves. They make sure that they've got everything set and ready to go. They are more advanced with this than just about any other city in Europe. And although they share this massive border with Russia, and there is this question about whether Russia is a threat to Finland, they say they're taking into consideration any worst case scenario, they're ready for it.
It literally is the most important report that I have ever done. And I have done reports at the request of the Senate Intelligence Committees. I have done reports directly for dictator Manuel Noriega's lawyers. I have done reports for congressional and Senate investigations for 25 years, and I would never do this as a frivolous bunch of baloney. I am absolutely a complete, firm believer in what I have completed here. The solar flares that they were talking about, the head of the CIA, James Woolsey, the solar flares that he and Janet Napolitano was talking about, again, all of these will be part and parcel to the passing of Nibiru whenever that takes place.
What is this?
Weather map on the sun. You'll notice part of the sun is missing. So this is a picture of the sun in ultraviolet rays. What you're seeing is this is 3.5 million degree plasma erupting from the surface of the sun. This part that's missing, the reason it's dark, is that whole chunk of the sun basically ripped off, blew out, and is coming our way at about 2 million miles an hour. And the real worry is, this is actually, believe it or not, this is a small one. This is a minor one.
Wow. Can you tell us what this means then?
So what this means is, this is what the sun does all the time, and we don't really know why it does it.
In the sun last year are some of the most important. Even though NASA tried to explain this, they couldn't. All these were observed by the Solar Dynamic Observatory, which is a telescope in the space. You can even see the energy going around the object, making clearer the presence of this huge black sphere in the sun. And it is very clear. It is what Dyson said in the 1960s, that probably in the future would exist spheres that were as big as planets. And this is what is happening now. And they would go around the sun, taking energy from the sun. As we can see here, this object seems to be taking the energy and then going away and creating a turbulence around the sun. I think this is really important because this also could explain why there is so much activity. When you have this kind of presence, you have to consider that they bring UFOs inside, hundreds, thousands or millions of UFOs, since these objects are bigger than planets.
This is what the sun does all the time, and
we don't really know why it does it.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Liftoff of the Mike Delta IV Heavy rocket with NASA's Parker Solar Probe, a daring mission to shed light on the history of our closest star, the Sun.
There is nothing else on the face of the earth that would cause the major governments of the world to dig survivable space under the ground and into the sides of the mountains to hide themselves away There's nothing else that fits it. Period.